Yes, guys, I'm sorry. Welcome back to Cardiff City World. Welcome back to the channel. And tonight we are taking a proper deep dive into Brian Barry Murphy and his effect on Cardiff City so far. Because whether you fully brought into the manager like myself, or you're cautiously optimistic, or still very much in the we'll see how it goes camp, there's no denying that things feel different at Cardiff City Football Club right now. And tonight, it's not about hype or blind faith or anything like that. Me and Jamie are going to have a look at some of the evidence. We're going to talk about some of the things which have gone well, gone right, and where we're looking at going into the rest of the season under Brian Barry Murphy. And hopefully it's a long old era under this manager. But who knows in football? There's all these different things to take into account. So get involved in the chat, whether you agree, disagree, you want to ask questions, whatever it may be. Because tonight we're going to assess the Brian Barry Murphy effect on Cardiff City. And I am, of course, joined by Jamie Anderson. How are you, mate? You good?
I'm good, mate. How's things?
Very good, very good, very good. Very busy after Christmas. But, yeah, this week's been a bit of a shock to the system, I think. After I had so much stuff over Christmas, like pre-recorded and scheduled, just to try and have, like, a few days off here and there. And then this week has just hit me like a train. It's just, like, non-stop. But it's been fun. It's good. Can't complain. It's all fun and games, mate. So the first thing I want to ask you, mate, before we get into the crux of the matter, is Cardiff City in a better position under Brian Barry Murphy than they were previously?
I think so. I think you look at any aspect of the football on the pitch or off the pitch, there seems to be a vision. He's implemented something that he told various fan groups at meetups across, South Wales. He's told, the press and the media that he believes in a certain way, and he has been quite consistent with that. And, there's been great times, there's been good times, and some losses that we've had have probably been a result as a result of maybe that philosophy that he has implemented. And it's nice that we've got somebody with a vision, with a, let's say, a modern approach and a belief in youngsters, because in years gone by, we've had, lesser term, like, dinosaur managers or managers who like the old sort of mature type of players. And there's nothing really of note on the pitch. So it's nice that we've got homegrown players, young players who are, performing to a high standard. Yes, it's League One, granted, but you can only play what's in front of you.
Yeah, and I think that's probably like a decent place to start. Like with this manager as well, is apart from like the things you mentioned with the young players and stuff like that, one of the things which does stick out is kind of what he says he's going to try and implement, or what he's doing, or what he was going to do when it was earlier in the season. He's very much stuck to that. If you're not training well enough, you don't play. If you're not performing or you haven't got the right attitude, you don't play. The players pick the captain, but that does, just because you're captain or vice captain doesn't guarantee you have a starting spot. And the wingers are going to stick right on the touchline, and you're going to see fast, progressive, modern football. And I think you see all those things, and I think in some ways it's a learning curve for some fans, where they're, over the recent years we've seen a lot of passing, and sometimes, particularly last year, it felt like it was a lot of sideways passing, possession football with no real purpose or plan when you got into the final third. So people, I think, still associate sometimes possession football with that. But I think personally, and I'll get your opinion on it now, like, it's very different. Like, I think the way we play now, there's a real purpose to it. There's the fact that you can see repeatable patterns, the fact that, early in the season we were working the ball to one side and then switching it over to the other winger with a 40, 50-yard pass. I don't think we see that as much lately, but that's probably due to a variety of reasons. But do you think there is a difference, or do you think that it's the same type of game and game plan philosophy or whatever that we've seen like last year or under Errol Bullock, for instance, where we played a possession game?
It's definitely different. You can sort of look at it and say, we've got centre backs that are almost like the quarterbacks in the NFL. They can hit these diagonal balls, the high pressing wingers, and it just sets us on the front foot. Every team is not going to give us the respect. We've had games where we've lost this year, where probably sides of like Bradford, they came down to the CCS, and Leyton Orient, who we beat, who thought we've got nothing to lose. We will fight fire with fire. And that's a great spectacle then, because it's goals, goals, goals. But there are games like against Burton where, we did struggle to beat their mid block, low block. And I think he is trying to learn ways to do it. And, New Year's Day away at Wickham, where we drew, the first 15 minutes, we were unbelievable. The wings that were coming off the flanks, the overlapping runs. It was really, really good to watch. And obviously, we had that chance to move with Joe Colwell and stuff, and that game could have been completely different. But then we had to show a different side to us, where defensively, we've not always been on it. But you can expect that with a young group of defenders and a group of midfielders and things like that. But there is one thing that you can probably say, and that's we've got a group of players that will leave everything on the pitch. And in previous years gone by, maybe attitude and application is something that we've probably said as fans was lacking. And we know that, BBM said today in his press conference that, as late as Friday, when they have a training session tomorrow or today, if the players aren't training well, they're not going to be in the squad. And I think that has resonated through the whole team. We've seen, senior players who were rumoured at the beginning of the year to be looking for the exit door because they were not happy with the club, and rightly so in some aspects. They've stayed. And despite not playing, the minutes that maybe they would expect, they haven't thrown their toys out, out the pram, so to say. They've actually acted in what we look at as an uncle figure, as Ronan Gapakiu and people call Callum Robinson. Callum Chambers has had to buy his time, quite a lot. But that's what you want, isn't it? You want players to be happy but competitive. And I think BBM has got an agreed philosophy. Everyone knows where they stand. There's no hidden agendas. There's no motives around. And listen, we're on 51 points halfway through the season. We are top of the league by 3 points and a game in hand. If you'd have said that to us at the beginning of the season, I think most of us would probably say that's exactly what we'd love. So we are where we are now on merit, I feel. And now we've just got to keep kicking on in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I think you've only got to listen to opposing teams' fans talk about us after games to realise that, we're a good side and we're playing good stuff and we're very difficult to play against. I think, look, I think I said in a video earlier that, look, it's great and we're in a great position and you'd have taken it 100% in the summer. But the job's only halfway done and you've got to see it through now in the second half of the season. Now, if I was within that group, I'd be looking at it thinking, God, do you know what? We're top of the league. We had a little wobble in probably around November time. But you look at the form since the Blackpool second half, which was an absolute horror show, the only one of the season, by the way. Because even that Bradford game, you take your chances, and that game's 3-3, 4-3. Like, that was just a bit of a weird one. The Blackpool second half was a horror show. And that's, incidentally, that's the one time I thought the manager got it wrong, which is, just my opinion. But that's the one time I think he got it kind of wrong, where he went a bit too gung-ho and he left us very open. But also the individuals had bad games and blah, blah, blah. However, you look at the response from that game onwards, I think it was up to I think it was the Stevenage game, like the second Stevenage game, or maybe the first. We'd scored 3 goals in every game we'd played in the league. Like, we had just reacted in this crazy way. And I think with a young team, what you wanted to see was learning. And if I take you all the way back to the first game of the season, the build up to that Peterborough game was a weird one. It was really exciting because you had this new manager. You knew young players were going to be involved because we hadn't made a load of signings. But I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of us expected Jack Alnwick to be in goal. Most of us expected Callum Chambers, Callum Robinson, Perry Ng, all the more experienced players to start that day. And when you got that team sheet through an hour before kickoff, and it was Matthew Turner in goal, Kapaki right back, Bagan, Fish, Lawler, Joel Colwell starting, Ruben Colwell starting, it was like, oh wow, this is going to be different. But you always don't know how that's going to play out in the game. And then obviously we were just very, very good. But later that week, or within the next week, we had a very difficult away trip to Port Vale, which I think brought people down to earth a little bit. It was difficult. But that point away now looks great point, by the way, because Port Vale are difficult to go to. But we learned from that. And I think if I sort of flip forward again now to the December period, if you look at the last 4 or 5 games, I don't think we've been anywhere near as open on the transition as we were a month ago, 2 months ago, where we were conceding 15 chances in a game. It was just teams weren't taking them, or Trott was having, pulling off blinders, or Fish was clearing it off a line, whatever it may be. And I think one of the really pleasing assets of that is that these players are learning, the manager's learning as well, but the players are learning as they're going. And he's made these little tactical tweaks. And like I said, we're not as open now. Now, do I think that having Alex Robertson back up to fitness has made a big difference to that? I do, yeah. But I also think that it's about balance, and it's about combinations, and it's about, Wintle and Robertson complement each other a lot. But it's also Brian Barry Murphy has tweaked. What we saw earlier in the season was effectively Wintle and then the 2 Colwells in the front line almost, which left obviously Wintle very exposed. Whereas now it is more like a 2. That's a tweak. That's him learning and adapting as he's going. That, to me, is quite impressive for a young manager and a young team. But I'm interested in, I know I spoke for a bit there, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's good. Again, like you can see with the changes, and I think someone's mentioned in the comments about he's had more of a positive impact with his changes this year than a negative. And last year, under previous managers, the impacts that were coming off the bench were more negative. They were detrimental to the team. Whereas this year, when you look at, say, for example, the right back situation, Perry Ng, okay, was injured. But you imagine being Perry Ng and then you put in, yourself in the squad and you're on the bench because a youngster, one of their own, who's going to have all fans behind him because, he's one of our own, is flying. He had to buy his time. Then you kind of go, okay, we're open. So we'll have a look at maybe putting Perry Ng more at the right back just to get us a bit more solidified defensive. Of course, you're going to lose a bit more of that higher press because he's more defensive as a right back. But then when you've got someone like Capaccio who can come off the bench with 25, 30 minutes to go, and he can fly and he can make an impact, we've seen the results of that. And again, it's like those little learnings, those little nuances where we have had a bit of adversity, like someone saying there about Ruben Colwell. Lee, to lose someone of Ruben Colwell's ability to any team would be massive. But what I've liked is, we were all saying about Kellerman and at times, why not play Kellerman at the 10? Okay, maybe his hand was forced. But he's persisted with playing Kellerman, and we're starting to see the fruits of that. Is that link at play, the fluency of the football. And you mentioned Blackpool away there. I remember looking at Josh Bowler that game and thinking, Josh Bowler's doing probably what our wingers aren't doing, which is starting off out wide, then coming in to the central areas, and he affected play. The next game then, you watched our wingers. They weren't just staying out wide. They were coming inside. And players like Kean Ashford, for example, who are still young, they need to be involved in the game because they can often maybe, no fault of their own. They may go missing or the ball, waiting for the ball to come out. We've seen Kean Ashford, we've seen Isaac Davis. When they're on the ball and they're cutting in, they're frightening. And I think, Lee Riley is very good as well. He knows his stuff as well. So you've got the yin to the yang, so to say there, and Brian Barry Murphy, what I like about him more than anything is he's not like some managers will sit down and just look at an iPad. You watch him, for whatever reason, like we were counting the other day, maybe he's got an analyst or a screen in the tunnel, but he'll see a phase of play, run down the tunnel area, look at some, and then he comes back. And it's again, he just wants the best for this team. And again, everyone is singing off the same hymn sheet. Can you tell me a time that we probably go into a transfer window and we're not thinking that we need 10 players? We probably don't. And again, it's testimony to the collective job that the players and the staff have done so far.
Yeah, the transfer one's interesting, and I think we'll come to that in a bit. But just on on Keane Ashford there, one of the things I've noticed over that December period with Keane is, yes, he still stays out wide, but when he gets the ball, you can hear Brian saying either beat your man or he'll say go in, and he goes in, and then Perry NG or Robertson is in that space, and quite often as well is Keane will sit on the touchline when the play's over here, and he'll stay and he'll stay and he'll stay. And then right as we're about to launch the pass, he'll go right into the 10.
Yep.
So the fullback goes with him, and then Perry's up on the touchline. And I think it's so clever because you're kind of keeping the winger on the touchline. So the fullback's constantly thinking, I got to keep an eye on him. If they switch to play, I'm in trouble here. So I've got to be kind of split away from their centre-backs almost, just one eye on him constantly. And then all of a sudden, he makes a dart inside, so you go with him. And it's the space, and it's those little, like you say, the nuances to what they're doing is clear for all to see. Funny enough, I said to a friend of mine this morning, one of the hardest things about where I sit is, and probably the same with you, is I got a wicked view of the game. It's such a good view. I love it. But I can also see the benches, because they're right in front of me. And the away bench is right in front of me. But I can see Barry Murphy all the time. And I find it very difficult not to just watch him because he's so engaged in the game and he's constantly talking to these players. They're young and he's constantly living every moment. And whenever we concede a free kick around the area or a corner, like you say, he's down that tunnel and he'll come out before it's taken. But it's just those little traits, I guess, where he's doing whatever he's doing. Maybe he's got a screen down there or he's rewatching it. But it's
the key thing
fascinating.
That is we went to a Q&A in Barry at the beginning before the season even started, and he was very open and honest. And we've seen managers in the past who have been, probably to their own downfall, being too honest and too open, maybe. But like he said, he said to people in Barry, because there was a few questions pre-season, was about how much ball we don't get into the box. We don't get the ball in the box, and we're starved as a fan base probably of attacking football, and we see other sides dictate play and so on. And he said, you'll see my wingers hug the touchline. You'll see, high energy, high press. And if somebody is not sort of up to that level, I will not be afraid to sort of, hook them, so to say. And to be fair, that he's taken his chances as a manager when he's had them, is when we've lost games, and it's very easy. I'd be the first one to say when I've lost games, the natural instinct is to be very critical or the if, buts and maybes. He's not he hasn't made any excuses. He's just got on with it and gone, okay, brush it off, praise where praise is due. And he's kind of gone and straight on to the next game. And, we wait for my wife when she finishes work after the games. And, sometimes he's still in the stadium till 8:30, after a game. And, you can see that he's got that work ethic. You can see why he was at Manchester City and, and the people that he's learned from, because I don't think he's naive. I don't think he's someone that will be complacent in the role. And I think it's no coincidence that people have touted him for, or rumoured to be touted him for jobs around, as obviously Strasbourg and so on and so forth, because you can see that he's got a modern mindset of how he wants to play football. And if this is only a foundation and hopefully a beginning of what we can see, and we keep, kind of ascending as a football club, let's hope that the Championship is the only, is only the start of the journey we want to get to, because he could be our manager for a long time, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, mate. And I think what is important for the club, and I want to talk a little bit about off the field now, but with regards to the club, I think what is vital is that, well, first of all, I feel like for the first time in about 15 years, it feels like there's a plan. It feels like there's a plan between the football club, the coaching staff, the recruitment team. They all feel like there's a very set plan about what they want to do, how they want to do it. And I agree with you. I don't think we need much of anything in January. In fact, I'm more concerned of the negative effect that bringing someone in will have than the positive effect. So just as an example, if we bring in a Premier League left back on loan, like a youngster, if they were to come in from a big club, will they be happy? Will their club be happy sitting on the bench behind Joe Bagan week in, week out? Probably not, right? But that can have, if they start moaning or it only takes something which stuck with me a lot over the recent years. When I did a show with Rodri before, and he said, when you've got like someone who's moaning, it only takes one person to have a negative mentality, and it spreads so quickly. And then all of a sudden, what was a really positive atmosphere becomes there's a few little cliques or there's a few groups of players. And I like that we just haven't got that this year. And it's very difficult for clubs to scout personality, right? You can scout tactics, you can scout analysis, you can look at stats, you can look at video, but it's very difficult to judge how a person deals with not playing, how a person deals with adversity or bad moments or bad form, because you can't really, like, particularly at our level where you maybe haven't got the funds to go and get the analysis on that side of it. So yeah, January for me, I think we have to be careful. If the right opportunity comes, then great. But to me, what's more important is that in the summer, the club back him wholeheartedly. Whatever he wants, you got to give it to him, and you got to find a way to give it to him. And if that means we have a quiet January because we've got one eye on the summer, I'm all right with that, because for me, the summer is going to be squeaky bum time in many ways, because that's when anyone or any clubs who are interested in Brian Barry Murphy as their manager, that's when they're going to come. And when they come and knock in, Cardiff have to match his ambition for this project. Yeah. Everything is in place. We got a young squad. We got a couple of younger players coming up as well. Like, we got the right manager for that. Now the club has to do its part, which hasn't historically always been the case. Yeah,
and I think, people have said, what's the point of having an academy if you're not going to use them? And that's a very valid point. And, we have got quite a few shining lights that will, especially the second part of the season, they will go up various age grades because, people will go out on loan and so on forth. It's nice having a manager that will not only watch them, but give them a chance. And, in years gone by, we've had separate training facilities for the under-21s, for example, to, the first team. They now train pretty much together. They're all aligned. And there are ways that Brian Barry Murphy has kind of came in, he's looked at it and he's gone, right, I'm going to work with what I've got. Now, I can't think of a manager that's probably come in and not asked for much. And again, like the amount of departures we had through various reasons, whether it's out of contract last year or, Callum O'Dowda and players like that leaving in the summer, you could have easily, thought he's going to throw his, sort of toys out the pram again, use that analogy, but he hasn't. He's stuck by what he said. He has always said that if I believe they're good enough, I will give them their opportunity. And to be fair, like you said, now we're in January, where if we've got a bit of pocket money spare and Mr. Tan's got a bit of money that can be spent, would we want to spend that now on someone that we probably don't necessarily need or makes an impact? I think BBM said earlier on, the key thing is he's changing the mindset slightly of things, where he's working alongside Paddy Du Bois and people like that to say maybe retaining the players is more of a thing. The likes of Joe Bagan, who is, as we speak, out of contract in the summer. The likes of maybe a Ryan Wintle or a Perry NG, who have performed very, very good this season. And I know people may say, but, it's the League One, and that is a valid point. But wouldn't you like to reward the players that have given you something than kind of be the opposite and say, no, it's all right, in years gone by, your contract's running out, just go, to save a few bits of change? No, I think having the right people here, like I said earlier about foundation, then you build eventually later on, and then those players then may be a bit part, but then you expect those type of players that maybe if we're in the Championship next year to act professionally like a Callum Chambers and a Callum Robinson have this year when they've had to wait on the sub bench. And Callum Robinson's a prime example. Some games we haven't even featured because we need maybe to keep Salak up top to keep the ball, but you haven't seen him moan. You haven't seen him show any ill effects. And he's probably one of the first ones who's celebrating when we get the 99th minute winner in the Canton stand. And he's probably running down the touchline, jumping on the players. So it's a feel-good vibe, isn't it? And we haven't had that for a while at the club. And it's nice to keep riding this wave. And again, it's another sellout this upcoming Saturday. It feels good being a Cardiff City fan. And at the moment, touch wood, we're on the way up as opposed to on the way down. And I think that's what we've got to keep doing, is we're not sleeping at the wheel. We're being proactive. We're making sure that we're looking at ways we can improve, not on the pitch, maybe off the pitch, because it all ties into one.
And I also believe, mate, as well, that, you look at this squad, outside of NG, Wintle and Chambers and Robinson, so those four, everyone's under 25. They're all going to improve. Now, whether they improve and go on to be Premier League players or whatever, that's another thing. But they're all going to improve, you would think. I understand that progress and development's not linear. Some individuals hit their peak early at 2021 and then they sort of plateau. Others continue to get better and better throughout their career. But you look at it and you think the chances are Ruben will probably get better. Joel will probably get better. Joel Bagan, he's slightly older than some of the others, but still young, has gone and really sort of kicked on this year to a whole nother level. Dylan Lawler's 19. It's frightening, mate. And it just, you feel like, going back to the long-term aspect of it, you feel like we'll have more chance of holding on to those players who will attract offers from other places, particularly big money offers. You feel like you'll have more chance of holding on to them longer if they give Brian Barry Murphy the right backing for the project, and they'll kind of because it all seems to align. Now, I'm not naive enough to say that all those players are going to stay with us forever. I wish they would, but you got to be realistic. When the big money comes, everybody's got a price. I think what you can do, though, is get promoted this year, support the manager in the summer, and go, do you know what? Have a look at the history of the last 10 years, how many teams have gone League One into the Championship and then been in and around the playoffs or got actually promoted to the Premier League back-to-back. It's quite a high number where those teams which have won League One have done quite well going into the Championship. However, you've got to back him. You've got to give him what he wants in the summer, and you've got to get there first and foremost, of course. Do you think, as we're talking about like the off-the-field sort of side of it as well, what do you think the impact has been from Brian Barry Murphy coming in and then the relationship between the fans and the club? Because let's be honest, at the start of the summer, that was probably at an all-time low. Certainly since the rebrand, like.
Yeah, I think listen, a lot of managers do it. They go and do Q&As and, it could be almost papering over the cracks and so on and so forth. When he came in, I would probably say, especially in my time, it was the lowest that the club has been. And it was very fractured. You could see there was no certainty with anything. There was no communication. There was a lack of everything, wasn't there? When he came in, he had a mountain to climb, and it was never going to be easy. And you try and convince people that, like any salesman would or anything like that, this is going to be the best product. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But talking is one thing and applying it is another. What he's done it's brilliant, especially when you look at the playing side of things, he's instilled belief in players that probably were lacking a lot of confidence last year. To do that in itself with him and his coaching team and stuff like that is one thing. But for the fan base, I think he gets it. The Irish traditionally as a nation, they're hardworking people. They love the communities and they're very passionate. And you can see that with his interviews. He's got this quirk about him, isn't he? And he's very approachable. As people may know, Sienna has umpteen pictures with the players probably every week, and people probably think, why did she do that? That's just the autistic trait in her. But he stops for every single fan. Doesn't matter if it's raining. It doesn't matter if they've lost. He'll stop for fans. He'll talk to fans. He's approachable. And I think that's what you want as fans. You just want to be heard. Even if you're not like me, sometimes I probably don't talk sense. I'll be the first one to say it. But sometimes when you hear that and someone gives you that chance to speak, you feel better. You feel like, oh, it's gone. But when you see the way that we're playing, I think it's a mirror of him. when we say about energy, and people are saying in the comments about when we're hunting in packs, the way he is on the sideline, running up and down his tracksuit, and down up and down the tunnel, jumping up and down, I feel like it's infectious. And I feel like, the players are kind of almost mirroring him. They know his demands. They knew he worked to Man City. Players aren't stupid. When they hear, this manager's coming in, they'll do their own research. So they've already got to up their game by 10, 15%. And again, we've retained these players. He's not bought in anybody else apart from Nathan Trott, Amari Kellerman, and Gabe Osho. Now, this time last year, Birmingham spent £30-odd million to get back up. We haven't. That shows to me what a good job he's doing, the players are doing, and maybe the structure that is being implemented that maybe isn't communicated enough probably at the club, because Sunderland, like you said about sides going back to back, they have a philosophy where they didn't pay for money, for players who were in a transfer for over 23 or something like that. That's benefited them now, because look where they are. They've had sellable assets and and so on. We've got to be good as a club with a structure. Otherwise, we haven't got money. Let's be brutally honest. Not many owners have money just to splash 20, 30 million pounds. We've got to have our own players. And I think that's what feels good about it is you look at that team, the core of that team, Cardiff City fans. You've got the Ruben Colwells, Joel Colwell stood outside Wembley. You've got the Isaac Davis, Kean Ashfords, who, have all got their pictures of them in Cardiff City scarves. They're just to name, a couple of players. Roland Gapacchio. It's brilliant. It feels good talking about the club. We don't feel ashamed to talk about what we're doing as a football club. And sometimes the cloud is grey over our football club for whatever reason out of our control. But I feel like halfway through a season, we can get behind something. And this momentum, if we can keep building on it, it's only going to get bigger. And you know what it's like. That Chelsea night, okay, we don't get that every week. We know that. But just imagine if we get closer and closer to the finish line, the attendance is going up, the atmosphere is getting up. Not many kids will see promotions in their life. Trophy ceremonies, that's what you want. You want to be a part of that. And hopefully, I really do think we will be there. And, I might not be saying that or feeling that on Saturday if things ain't going well. But that's why we love our club, because we don't expect things to be, very linear. We're going to have moments where we've got to take a punch and throw a punch back. And I feel confident, and that's not something I probably said for very much over the last couple of years.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think you hit the nail on the head with he gets it, doesn't he? He gets Cardiff City and he gets the fans, and he also understands the importance of the fans. And I think that's clear by the words that he uses in the press conference whenever he talks about the fans and the support. And it's really interesting, right? You mentioned about, not many fans get to see sort of trophy ceremonies and the rest of it. It dawned on me when we were watching the Chelsea game. I was watching with my son, and he was sat in the stadium, and you could see when David Turnbull scored, he just went nuts, and he doesn't really go that nuts when we score, because he's just at that age where it's too cool for school, and he's with his dad as well rather than his mates or whatever. But it dawned on me, he hasn't seen the Leeds FA Cup final. He wasn't, he wasn't alive. He hasn't seen the playoff final. He hasn't seen the FA Cup final run and the Carling Cup final runs, and he just hasn't experienced those things. So I'm super excited for him to be really get himself entrenched in the second half of the season, where we've got something legitimately to play for and aim for, and I think, touch wood, if things continue the way they are, I think we'll probably, definitely be in the top two. And I think we should win the league, if I'm honest. And I said this to Charles, the Doncaster fan, the other week. I don't want to sound like I'm being arrogant, because it's not an arrogance. It's just a confidence in what the manager's doing and what these players are capable of. And I think, look, it is a perfect storm where you've got a group of 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9 academy players who are all ready to play first team football at this level, and a manager who believes in it. Because let's be honest, mate, some of the managers who we've had in the last 10 years, if they were the manager now, not all of these players are in the first team. Some of them are in the under 21, some of them are on loan. They wouldn't have been given that belief and that opportunity to play. And I say this all the time. I've said it like 5 or 6 times over the last sort of 6 months, but every football fan's dream at club level is to succeed, to win trophies, whatever, but also is to be able to do it with a team of academy graduates, a team of people who are just like you and me, who have, if they weren't playing football for a living, they'd be in the Cardiff City Stadium watching the team going home and away. And I think that's massive, because it means that they're not there for the money. They're not there for anything else other than they just love playing for the club and they want to succeed. And I think it'll be hopefully a special moment towards the end of the season. But there's a long way to go and there's a lot of work to be done. When you look at it from a tactics point of view, you mentioned earlier about I can't remember what it was. We were talking off air anyway. We were talking about Yusuf Salic and Callum Robinson, obviously, great strikers for this level. Salic has missed a few chances, and I hear some people moaning and whatever and saying as we're all got opinions and so and so should be dropped instead of this person and blah blah blah. My thing with Salic, and one of the reasons why I think he maybe hasn't been as clinical as what we thought he would be, is because of the way we play around the edge of the box. He doesn't always know when the ball's coming in. So what you find is a lot of the time when he's getting a header, he's leaning back because he's had to adjust his position because he's not expected it. Whereas I think the manager has said recently he wants to get the ball in the box a little bit earlier. If Yusuf Salic knows where the ball's going or the area that it's going and he attacks the ball, there's nobody better. If you go back to the Leyton Orient game when he scores his header, after Brian makes the 3 subs, he knows the ball's coming. He attacks that near post, meets it, and the keeper's got no chance. You look at the sort of half chance that he missed in our most recent game against Wigan. He's kind of jumping backwards. He slightly mistimes his jump, but it's harsh, right? Because he's underneath it. But if he knows it's coming, he'll give himself a bit of space to run up on it and over the back of the centre back and win it. So I do think it is defence that I think if he knows the ball's coming, you'll see a slightly more cleaner finishing from him. And I think it's hard for Callum Robinson. I know he apologised, didn't he, after the Wickham game? Look, you give that chance to him 100 times, he scores it 99 times, even with his left foot. It's just one of them unfortunate ones where the connection just is weird. But Callum Robinson, in my opinion, is the best finisher in Cardiff City squad and has been probably for the last 3 years. I've said that a few times. But it's difficult for him because he's not playing a lot of minutes. So he's constantly off the bench. You've got 10 minutes to get a goal, 20 minutes to get a goal. And it's hard to find your rhythm in a game. Anyone who's played sport or football knows coming off the bench, it's quite difficult to find the speed of the game and stuff like that. But tactically, I expect Brian Barry Murphy will get the ball in the box earlier to service Salic. It's just me. Maybe I'm hopelessly optimistic when it comes to the manager.
I think it's a good thing, though, isn't it? Because it's like that old saying, isn't it? You've got to be in it to win it. I think we'd be more frustrated if he wasn't in those areas. And I know BBM has said on several times that his best goals or his preferred goals for Salic are ones that are 6 yards out, because it shows that he is in the right place where he wants his strikers. Now, I know there is a stat. I think he's missed 27 key opportunities or whatever it is. That's fine. But he's currently on 11 goals and 4 assists, which, as per FOTMob, I think it works out that he's the best goals plus assists in the league. Now, for somebody that came into the British football only in January, somebody that is only 23,
doesn't get free kicks.
Doesn't get free kicks. He gets pinned for everything he does, but he gets nothing on his side. To be scoring 11 goals, and we are still saying he could have probably scored more. He should have scored more. It's a good thing because I think he would know that himself as well. And you look at it from this other way. We're currently 3 points clear of second. I think it's 4 or 5, isn't it, at third? And there's a massive gap then between fourth. Now, had we had scored those, I know it's if, buts, maybes and whatever, we'd be at the canter. We'd be cantering ahead. There's games where, like you said, where we've lost now, 6 defeats we've lost this year. We've had opportunities. We just haven't taken them. And like you said about Callum Robinson there, I think he's only second in the league. I think he gets a goal per 90. I think he gets 0.68 goals. So, it's hard to make an impact. But the key thing is there's players coming off the bench like a Ronan Capaccio, who is still up there with the highest assists in the league, for someone who of late hasn't played a lot of minutes because, unfortunately for him, Perry NG is having a very, very good, sort of half of the season, isn't he? And what we want as fans is, and I think BBM wants it, is you can call them substitutes, different managers, different people call them different. They call them replacements, they call them impact, don't they? We've had players in years gone by that have had a wrong impact. They've just merely gone on there for running around or whatever it might be. They've lost the ball at every chance. But the players, the vast majority this season, are ready to make that impact. They're going on with the right information. They're going on knowing what their role is and what their expectations are from the manager and the various coaches. And the vast majority of the time, they're implementing it. And we've won games at the death where we probably shouldn't be winning. And there's sides who've come to Cardiff, and especially at the Cardiff City Stadium, who felt aggrieved at the fact they haven't held out for a point that they probably deserved. But that's football. We lost against Burton Albion when we dominated possession and everything else. But Burton Albion didn't care about that when they won 1-0. So it swings in roundabouts. But the difference is this year, positivity is infectious, as is negativity, isn't it? And I think, you look at players like, someone just said about Willock there. We have moments. And I think we have games where we can be frustrating because we're not maybe moving it as quick. But I don't think you can expect fast-paced football every single game especially around Christmas and New Year's, where the games are just thick and fast. You've almost just got to just get through it. Get through it. A scrappy 1-0 against Stevenage or 2-1, whatever it is. Get through it. Get the 3 points on the board. Move on. And then when you've got more time between fixtures, you can then get more time on the training pitch, and you can then start going, right, we need to do this a bit better. Chris Willock, fantastic. Who would have thought that Chris Willock, of say 2.5 months ago would be anywhere near a Brian Barry Murphy team? He probably wouldn't. But that goal at Luton was confidence, and he's a very confident player. We're starting to see it with him. He's little, yes, he could probably do a bit more at times. Of course he could. But he's getting in those positions. And I just think it's a hungry squad that really, really are in it together. And, you've got Chris Willock as a senior pro now, which you wouldn't have thought that would have happened last year. Callum Chambers, Callum Robinson. They've got a leadership group there that are all singing off the same hymn sheet. It's a good camaraderie. We've got two youngsters in, Eli King and Ruben Colwell, who would have probably played a big part this season, injured for the foreseeable. None of them are moaning about it. They're in training. They're trying to be as infectious and as helpful as they can. And we're seeing an Omari Kellerman that probably none of us would have known last year. Now we're seeing him and thinking, wow, now I can see why he's touted quite highly. And, I think as a club, we're probably not used to seeing these things. That Chelsea night, yes, we lost it, granted. We shouldn't have lost it, in my opinion. I thought we were a very, very good team that night. And they just showed how they enjoyed it. The fans enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I thought we were brilliant. And, and testimony to ourselves that they had to bring over £100 million worth of players off the bench because Maresca's backside was going. But we're building something. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? With any building, it's only as safe as the foundations. And if a storm comes, if your foundations aren't secure, it's going to blow down. You'll be starting from scratch. BBM at the minute has got a good foundation, but we just need to keep putting those blocks in place that, as long as everyone's agreed on it and there's no, well, hang on, it's a committee signing, so to say, or a club signing like we've heard in the past, then the sky's the limit for us. And I just think it's great. 1,300 or whatever it is fans travelling in a sold-out away end on Saturday. Again, Bradford, 12:30 kickoff. We're selling a good number of tickets for. Mate, it's a brilliant time. And what I love is seeing the younger fans coming through now. There's people proud to be a Bluebird. There's people going on these away games, on these travels, saying, you can all go and support your Man Cities and whatever, but they're proud to be a Cardiff fan. And that's what I love. I think it's great to see, mate. And, and we're all passionate. Football is it's a great game. It gives us a platform to talk to each other. And that's the key thing. I think, we're on a high at the minute, and we just want to keep riding that high wave.
Yeah. And look, mate, at the end of the day, right, is I think as Cardiff fans, we've had our fair share of negative experiences over the years, especially some of the older ones of us. It goes back even further. Like, it's one of those things. And the first thing I said to my son in pre-season was, I'm just looking forward to winning some football matches this year, because it felt like for the last 2 seasons, we haven't won many matches. And then obviously you get into it. And a few people were talking about the atmosphere in the ground earlier in the comments. And I think, there is a danger when you do, and when you're as top of the league, you're playing good football, that fans almost turn up expecting, just go and blow this team away, and the atmosphere can suffer. So, look, we all know that there's, I think, issues with placement of the away fans, and which could make the atmosphere better. But ultimately, that's out of our hands, and we're not going to be able to do anything about it. We all know why, and it is what it is, right? But I think my message has been quite consistent with regards to the match going fans and stuff like that. Is like just get behind the team and the manager, because it wasn't so long ago we were playing under, I don't know, Mick McCarthy or whoever. The football was dire. We weren't really winning much matches. There was players there who were just there, not because they cared. They were there because it was their job, or because they got getting paid or whatever. They ended up getting paid handsomely. Like, we have a squad of players who want to be there, full of homegrown talent. The ones who aren't homegrown talent are young and aggressive and technically excellent footballers. And you mentioned Chris Willock. I think the manager has played a big role in his improvement. And here's why. If you look at when he needs to, if he doesn't start, when he needs to make an attacking change, Willock is always one of the first ones he brings in. He's clearly got a lot of trust in him. And I think what you've seen in recent weeks is Willock repaying the faith that he showed him earlier in the season. Like you say, he gets a real good goal against Wickham, nearly scores again, actually, not long after that. And I think his belief and his confidence, but just on him being a senior pro, it's really interesting, right? Because Callum Chambers got dropped at the start of the season. And I know I've talked about this before, but I want to make this point slightly different. Callum Robinson gets dropped. He's rumoured to be the highest paid player at the club. He's the club captain. Did he throw his toys out? Did he kick up a fuss? Did he cause a problem? Did he go banging on the manager's door? No, he got his head down. And what he did was he trained hard. When he was needed, he came off the bench, did well. And then when he was required, he's now playing the best football that he's ever played in a Cardiff City shirt. He looks a night and day a different player to last year. I know he did all right in midfield, but as a centre-back, we haven't seen the levels that he's at this year from him. Now, I'm looking at Joel Colwell at the start of the season, one of the first names on the team sheet, flying, same as Capacchio. What better role models than Callum Chambers and Perry Ng, Callum Robinson, who have been probably not played as much football as they would have liked this season. Perry, not so much now because he's back as first choice. But Joel Colwell is new for him, isn't it? He was in the first team. He must have thought, this is the dream, right? I'm playing for Cardiff week in, week out. And then all of a sudden he's on the bench. That can be difficult to deal with because, I don't think this is the case within Joel, because I think he's quite, he's got his feet on the ground and he's a great family and stuff like that. But, young players, generally speaking, when they get into that first team and they start playing week in, week out, they can feel like they've made it, particularly if you're playing for your hometown club. So then when you do get dropped, you look at, what's his head, Man United now, Kobe Mainoo, like he must have thought he'd made it. Played in the Euros final, playing week in, week out, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden barely played a minute this season. My point being, young players, when they do get that adversity or they get dropped, it's how they deal with it. And I think every one of those young players can look at Callum Chambers and go, wow, he was the club captain. He's the one who's played for England. He's played for Arsenal in the Premier League. That's how you that's how you react. That's how you behave. You don't moan. You don't kick up a fuss. You don't go, why aren't I playing? You work harder, play better. When you get your opportunity, you take it. And I think that's really, really important. And I think, for Joel Colwell, I'm sure it's been a bit of a frustrating period because he wants to play, he wants to start. But I think he's had a massive impact off the bench when the players have got tired. And that's what he's got to do. Same with Capaccio, same with, Ruben when he gets back. You mentioned Kellyman. I think Kellyman looks night and day to what he looked when he was on the right wing. I think he's a natural 10. And, Ruben will have to come back and he will have to earn his spot. And that'll be new for him because let's be honest, the way BBM was talking about him in pre-season and at the start of the season, he was building this team around him. And I'm sure he's still, that's still the plan and the rest of it. But Ruben's got to earn his starting spot back first. And I love that.
I think what's good is it's a contradiction in a way, isn't it? Because as a player, naturally, you've got that selfish nature. You want to be playing. That's what any player would want. And also, if they didn't want to play, you probably wouldn't want them at your club, would you? Because naturally, if they're not happy not playing, then they probably don't give two hoots enough, So it's that contradiction about being, not content that you're not playing, but also then not causing an issue with the rest of the players, because naturally then that could create a whole different kettle of fish, disrupt the atmosphere within the club. But then that's where you say the likes of, all these leadership roles come into handy, because we know the talent that these youngsters have got. But with that, there comes added pressure, which they're not used to. You've got Capaccio when he played for Wales against Canada, the slander that people were giving him, could have knocked his confidence, but I'm sure there was all, experienced pros around him and people at the club going, ignore it, block out that noise, concentrate on what you're doing, because it's all part of being a footballer. You're going to have moments where you're sat, unfortunately, for 90 odd minutes, like Callum Robinson has done, on the bench, running up and down the sideline, and you could probably think, what's the point? But if your mentality is about the team and you've got a good buy-in, which we talk about this segment with BBM, and the buy-in that he's got from these players is probably not very common in football anymore, because players, agents, external factors, they have a power, they have a way of disrupting things if they're not happy. To date, and touch wood, we haven't had that. We're not hearing that, whereas, in recent years, naturally, when things aren't going well, you see all these different reports and rumours and so on. At the minute, we seem to have a happy house, a happy ship, whatever. And it feels good, because what is not to buy into at this club? If you're a youngster, say now towards the end of the season, you're coming from a Chelsea or whatever it may be, and they go, well, can we get a club that, would take care of our youngsters? We will, because we've got a manager that believes in youngsters. And I think that was an earlier comment about, we were told last year probably that our youngsters weren't ready. BBM straight away was saying, thing. And I know minutes and games of, people have said over Christmas, we look tired. We probably may do it. We probably did a little bit. But what those games in the added Virtue Trophy and the Carabao Cup gave us was an opportunity to feed those players who didn't have the minutes, to keep them hungry, to say, okay, you're going to get your chance. We'll play you away at Burnley, which, may I add, was a brilliant night out. We loved that. And we showed a very good, experienced Burnley side. Actually, we weren't out of place that night. And then you go down to Exeter. We have a good established squad there. You get a few youngsters in the team, so it gives them that taste to feel like, hang on a minute, the door's still open to an extent. I've just got to keep developing. Then you play, all right, we lost against Wimbledon. But wasn't it refreshing that night against Arsenal to showcase what youngsters we've got? And again, we take it, we take the emotion out of it, and we just stand back and you look at all these games as an individual. The amount of youngsters that we played this season, more than ever. The amount of minutes and goals we've scored are very, very high. The production, the goals we're scoring are brilliant. Of course, there's going to be moments like probably set pieces seems to be our Achilles heel at the minute, defending set pieces. But you're going to learn that. Saturday we'll probably find Richie Wellens has a plan to counteract us. But we've got to learn on the job, because at the end of the day, in any day life, maturity comes from being in situations and learning how to deal with them in order to then apply yourself better, And I think these youngsters, for me, are brilliant. And I know there's a comment there just said about Mafiko. That's a very poignant moment there. And early on in the season when Mafiko could have just drowned, he had to do the longest walk past the cant and stand and all that after having, let's be honest, it was a horrible, horrible half. Years gone by, maybe that wouldn't happen. Callum Robinson straight over to see him, give him a hug, give him an embrace. The whole Canton stand, the whole stadium clapped and said, he's one of our own. that goes to show how the dynamic and the feel-good factor is at our club. You know, we always sing it. He's one of our own, and again, they are our own. We have, as fans, we've looked after them, and hopefully they feel that love. And I always say there's no better feeling than a late goal in front of that Canton stand. Cian Ashford's had it. Joe Bagan's had it. You know, Dowd of last year. Those moments are why we paid the money to go home and away, or we paid the season tickets, because I don't feel there's a better form of entertainment than live football. And especially if it's your team, you'll remember the good, you'll remember the bad, you'll remember the ugly. And I think this season there's been a lot more good than bad, and long may it continue.
And I think that's where I would like to kind of take this full circle. And to wrap us up, I got a couple of sort of questions to put to you to take us home nicely, mate. And I guess the big question is, are Cardiff City just simply playing nicer football, or, as we've discussed, are they genuinely laying foundations for something which is sustainable over time?
I think it's got to be the latter. I think that goes hand in hand, doesn't it? If you haven't got the right foundations in place, then, like I said earlier on, it's going to be shaky, it's going to be ropey. I think it's all having a plan and not being too rigid or robotic, like Lee just said there in your approach. It's okay, maybe in the past we say about we've got a plan B. We're not necessarily talking about what's on the pitch, because if you've got a plan off the pitch, on the pitch, naturally that goes in hand. I feel that when, you know, again, I see the term the product, when the product on the field is looking so good and you've seen evidence of it, you know, we know our owner would love us to have 55 shots a game, 55 goals a game, or whatever. But even he, and, you know, and anyone else, probably even myself, I'll speak first-handed, in the years gone by, we can probably put 10 negatives and go, right, bang, bang, bang. The case study for the positives now this year far outweighs the negatives. And if this is how we can keep going now, like I said, we're only, you know, it's like the Bon Jovi song, we're halfway there, you know, we are only halfway there. There's still a lot of games to go. We've still got that added game in hand, so that could be something that we may use, and hopefully, touch wood again, nothing adverse happens to us. We can keep climbing. Ipswich have done it in the past with the right people at the club and so on. You know, Sunderland have done it. It's not unrealistic to do that, but sometimes you've got to go down to come back up. And unfortunately for us, I didn't enjoy it, didn't like it, wasn't happy about it. I'm sure many people weren't. But the good thing is about going down, we've now seen more than ever this talent of youngsters that we've got. They've given the opportunity, and I think that just gives you the flavour for more, doesn't it? It's like, wow, what's next for the next, say, I don't know, Amani Barton, Rob Tankovic, and all these other players, just name two. Wow, you must be thinking, let me have a bit of that pie. Do you know what I mean? And it's feeling good, mate. It does feel good.
You look at Axel Donksu, mate, 15 years old, must know he came on at the bar, and then he's on the bench, sat opposite Garnacho and all these other superstars and millions of pounds worth of talent. He must have been pinching himself, mate. But you know what? When it comes to a time when he's going to get an opportunity at the first team again, he'll be comfortable because he's been in the squad. He's been in the squad for the biggest game, you know, in terms of crowd and everything under the season. And I think, like you say, Tankovic obviously out at the moment with an injury. These kids, when they're ready, they'll get an opportunity. They know that. In terms of like the now, January, what is your classification of backing the manager? Do you think we need to bring players in? Do you think we don't? Like, where do you sort of sit with it?
I mean, again, how can you, through my eyes, I just look at it and think the only sort of alarm as such would be if Joe Bagan were to get hurt. We probably saw that at Wickham to an extent with Perry NG, that I think Wickham found a way to make him maybe double up, so he wasn't able to cut in on his right hand side to use his right foot, and that wasn't, you know, that's not a dig at NG by any stretch, but no. Having a left footer on the left side, right foot, it's very old approach, but it works because that ball that Bagan can play down that channel, it's unbelievable. I just feel that, I mean, again, I don't know. If a player comes in, it's going to have to be someone that's like, wow, that's a marquee signing. That's a statement. That is someone that already just, improves us and walks into that team straight away. I can't see that. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe they get this superstar come in. Retention is the big thing for me, though, and saying no to clubs that will probably chance their arm and think, let's say Sheffield United, who may need a striker. Oh, well, that guy's good in Cardiff. They signed him for £1 million or whatever it was. We'll give him 4. Well, no, you're not having Saleh for that. I'm sorry. No, we need to say no. And to know that, hang on, retention is probably the best thing for us, especially with the Dylan Lawlers, the Ronan Kapakios. Don't entertain these offers, because while things are going good, like you said, we want to keep them and build off it. We don't want to lose them and then have to rejig things and so on. So, yeah, I probably can't see anything happening apart from maybe a left back. I think BBM had mentioned that in his press conference today because a reporter asked him. But apart from that, why would you change a winning recipe at the moment? And I think everyone feels appreciated, like you said, the feel-good factors in that team, and they've all got a role to continue to play.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think for me, one of the important things, we've got to get Joel Bagan's contract sorted. Like, I do think that is essential. I think we're top of the league. In my opinion, we're the best team in the league. So if everybody does their jobs and is able to perform to the level week in, week out, but on the whole, you're going to have the odd game, of course. I tend to think we'll be all right, because I look at it. You got Ruben to come back at the end of this month, hopefully, and that'll be like another signing. Like, we haven't had him for the best part of 3 months or 2.5 months, or whatever it is. And look, Kellyman's done a great job. But you imagine now, like, the players we're able to bring off the bench, whether it's Joel Colwell or Callum Robinson or whoever. But you imagine being able to bring in Ruben Colwell off the bench. Do you know what I mean? It's like that in itself. And the good thing with Ruben is the other teams fear him. Like, everybody's aware of him because he's the one who's had the coverage and things like that. It's just, to me, at the moment, if everybody's fit, I think it's 2 players after not being in the match day squad, like 2 senior players, might be 1. But obviously, Mafiko and Niger Howard are going to go on loan. But my point being is, if you bring in, say, 2, 3, whatever, doesn't mean you've got to drop someone you've got to drop a couple of your boys every week. And I think that's where you can get a problem. Because at the moment, like you rightly say, everyone's bought in. If they suddenly start getting dropped because you've brought in a lone player from whoever, that could be an issue, man.
Yeah, and I think someone just said there about, promotion, their feeling is promotion doesn't happen if players aren't through the door. We need players to upgrade. I do think so. I mean, there's, just looking at the fixture list now, there's 5 games by the time January, the transfer window would shut. That's a lot of games. And again, naturally, like we said about having a plan, things could, as much as they're going swimmingly, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but it could go the other way. We could have a bit of a up down. And then at that point, then you might have to go, okay, right, have we got a plan in place because Z injuries happened? Or, well, hang on a minute, we aren't as clinical, or we aren't playing as well, and so on and so forth. So I think that's it's always something to be mindful of. You have to be pragmatic, you have to be proactive and go, right, if we need to press that button, that's ready to go. And we get that done straight away. And he's in the door by Monday, ready to go for the Tuesday night game. We have to be like that. But also, let's not negate for the players that we've got there. And like I said, if there's a buy-in, that's no problem. If players now, when their agents, as agents are paid to do, go, hang on, we've heard such and such, want you. Well, okay, we need to be like, okay, you're either in or you're out. It's simple, and I know football doesn't work as easy as that, and I know there's contracts, and I know all these things that happen, but like you said, it's all about buy-in. People, if they come in through the door as new signings, if we do get them, they need to be straight away buying into the club and the philosophy. They're not here just because, hang on, I've been told by Chelsea or Liverpool, whoever it may be, that I've got to come in and I've got to sign. No. You're either all in and you want to improve the team that we've got and be a part of something, or we don't sign you. Or, same people, if they're here already and they want to go, okay, be honest, there's the door. You're not going to try and disrupt what we've got going. And January's a funny month. You often overpay, don't you? And that's one thing I don't want to see us do if we do sign people, is we don't overpay just for the sake of overpaying. It's you often do see those sort of transfers, and I think listen, just keep going. And I'm sure there'll be rumours, Si. I'm sure there'll be people out there probably spreading misinformation, i.e. agents or whatever, to upset the apple cart. And again, we've just got to be strong in our approach. But I do think we need to look at straight away getting in contract, like you said, for Joe Bagan, because I think they're allowed to speak to foreign clubs now, or some clubs outside the English division. So they could sign a pre-contract, and then we'd probably be kicking ourselves saying, well, we probably should have done it. But who knows?
That would be the most Cardiff thing ever, by the way. That like Joe Bagan goes and gets Player of the Year when we get promoted, and then he signs a pre-contract with whoever, Lazio or something, and we lose our Player of the Year on a free. But
look, Jack Anick's gone today, like you said there in the comments. Jack Anick, apparently Horvath's going as well. So again, finances they could be tight, but those players, thank you, Jack Anick, for the moments you've had, and fair play to him. He was the DSA ambassador for the club as well. But now he moves on to new things, and we've got Matt Turner as our number 2. People are joking, saying Perry NG is our number 3. So, yeah, mate, it's a good time to be a Cardiff fan. And again, fair play to the fans. They keep turning up. They're supporting. And, yeah, I think we're going on the way up, hopefully, on the roller coaster.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I think for the first time in a long time, it does feel like there's a plan. I think that comes from the manager. We got a clear identity. I believe anyone who signs has got to have the same mentality that Nathan Trott and Gabe Osho and Kellyman have had, where, like I mentioned Kellyman earlier, guy looks like he's having the time of his life playing for Cardiff City. And, well, I guess we'll see where he plays his football next year. But I am optimistically hopeful that maybe something can be done, because I think he's a very talented lad. He's young and he's raw, but I think he's done a real good job. And most importantly, and I've kind of finished off on this, whether it's January now or even more so in the summer, the club have just got to listen to the manager, listen to what he wants and expects, and back him ultimately. And that's what it comes down to. If Brian Barry Murphy says to the board on the 25th of January, look, I need a left back, a striker, and a winger, whether that's loans, permanents, whatever, they got to make it happen, because they have to back him and have the same ambition that he has shown. I know there's been some tweaks to the infrastructure within the club in terms of how things work, and I think some of that's come from the manager, which is a good sign, because it shows that they're taking on what he's saying, how things can be improved, whether it's an analysis or recruitment or whatever. But yeah, it's no secret I'm a big fan of the manager, but I also think the club have got to make sure they do their part with regards to supporting the manager. And I also think, hopefully we don't have any nasty shocks in the summer then, and we can build for something else and build for the future under this manager and these players. And like you mentioned earlier, there's a few even younger ones who are going to be coming through in a couple of years, or maybe next year. You want a manager who's going to get the best out of them, improve them, and play them ultimately. But Jamie Anderson, thank you so much for joining me, mate. Really appreciate you. Bit of a Brian Barry Murphy love-in this evening. But no, I think it's good to assess season so far. We're about halfway through. And I was kind of interested in how you feel, because like you mentioned about the away fans, mate, selling out everywhere we've gone. It's actually really difficult to get away tickets for someone like me who doesn't go away every single week, and wants to do the odd one. It's really hard to get tickets, mate. This is because obviously the people who go, like yourself, who go to every away game, you get the first lot, and some of these grounds don't hold a lot of people, so there's only X amount of tickets. Leighton Orient's going to be interesting, mate, because I know we beat them 4-3, but I thought we really, really let them into the game. We were so comfortable, 1-up, and obviously Gabe has a bit of a nightmare with a back pass to the keeper, and we just gave them belief then after that, and they ended up fighting for everything. Whereas before that goal, they were starting to look like they had sort of losing the world chase, a bit like what Wigan did on the other day, just chasing the ball. And yeah, how do you think the Leyton Orient game will go? Just give me a quick prediction.
I think positive. I think we'll win. Obviously, we've got to be mindful of their threats, which I think is Don Ballard. Is it the striker? I think he's decent. I think we've just got to be more from set piece. I think we just got to be more sort of assertive from it, because that is probably, in my opinion, our Achilles heel. We've conceded, as we saw with Wickham, a bit of an air kick there. I think we'll do it if, as long, again, we are mindful of how they play, but let's make it like our place, is let's not be afraid to play our way. High tempo, high press, get physical when we need to. And again, there'll be 1,300 or so Bluebirds cheering them on, and hopefully we'll get another 3 points, because I don't believe Lincoln are playing this weekend, do they? Because I think it's FA Cup weekend.
Yeah.
So again,
so that would be our game in hand then this week, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and obviously then we'll have the Barnsley one. We'll have the Barnsley one. When is it, March or whatever it is? But listen, I'm sure they'll be watching on Lincoln and thinking, come on, Leyton Orient. But imagine that then if we go and win, then that put that gap again, isn't it? And then
puts the pressure on them, doesn't it?
And winning is contagious. And like I said, mate, I hope we win. I don't know a score. Knowing us, it'd be a 2-1 or something like that. But yeah, I think we'll do a job up there.
Yeah, for me, the blueprint for the away performance is the first 20 minutes or so versus Wickham. I thought we were excellent. And then when you do get in the lead, the blueprint is the Wigan game, because we kept the ball so well and we just death by 1,000 cuts. That's how you play away from home at the end of the day, is you take your chances and then you put the pressure on them. But we'll see. Obviously, it's going to be an interesting way of finishing, and I'm looking forward to it, mate. I got to say, really looking forward to it. Enjoy the show, mate. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to all the comments. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of them. I wanted to kind of get through certain points and stuff, but we'll come back to them at a later date, and we'll address them. We'll have the preview for the Leyton Orient game tomorrow. We'll have Brian Barry Murphy versus, or the tactical showdown, where we pit the managers against each other tomorrow night. If you haven't seen it already, we dropped the video on Cardiff City World earlier, which was 3 things I think that we need to see from Cardiff in the next 6 weeks. And I also launched my personal channel earlier, which actually started with a Cardiff City video, ironically. So I'd appreciate if you can go support that and give it a subscribe and all that good stuff. It's just Cy1927 on YouTube. Thank you so much, James. Nice one, mate. Thank you to everyone watching, and we'll see you in a bit. Tidy.
Rascal Beats.
For your Caesar, Cardiff City, ride with me for your Caesar.